Good evening,
Hi, Bill.
everybody. It's July 22nd, 7 p.m. This is the Hillcrest Middle School Building Committee meeting. Is a virtual meeting tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Barbara, would you ask for a roll call, please? Can't hear you, Barbara.
Joe Costa,
Here.
Andrew Lubin,
Here.
CJ Sinelli, not here. Bill Mecca,
Here.
Fran Basbigill,
Here.
Ann Sather,
Here.
John Morello, Bob Gerbert, and Jeff Alterman.
Here.
And that means we have a quorum. Fantastic. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. At this point, I'd like to share my screen and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you don't mind turning on your mic so we all can join together. Let me share my screen.
I'm not going to come out till like 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Do
You
you
can
see
get at least a waving flag. There you go.
Do you see my screen?
Yeah,
we do.
All right. So let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag
Well,
of the
can't say
United
make it later than
States
saying
of
I'm coming or
America,
not.
and
To
to
the
the
Saying I'm gonna
republic
come.
which
stands
stands
one
one nation
nation
under God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with
Liberty,
justice
for all.
Thank you very much.
You're in sync.
And I'll stop sharing now. Alrighty. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was July 8th?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
Bill. Was that Ann?
Yes, it was Ann.
Great. Any comments, discussions?
This is Andy. I'm going to abstain because I unfortunately missed the last meeting.
Okay, Andy. We'll make a note of that. Any comments, any edits, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. I think we have 1 abstentions and no nays, correct? Fantastic. Thank you very much. All righty. Next on our agenda is public comment. Are there any public that wish to comment?
If there are any members of the public who would like to make comment, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen at this time. Okay, Mr. Chairman, it does not look like there are any members who would like to make comment at this time.
Okay, let's move on to the next item on our agenda, and that was the review and approval of invoices. And for the first time, I think we have an invoice. Does anybody have that invoice that they can bring up so that everybody can look at it?
Well, I have it. I can't bring it up on my system. Unfortunately, I'm using my iPad.
Okay.
Sure, Joe. Give me just a moment. I'll get it up on the screen for you.
Thank you, Jack. I should have had this teed up, but I wasn't thinking.
Well, we're establishing a new protocol. This is all brand new stuff for us here. Can you make that a little bigger? Oh, somebody else brought it up. Okay.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much. Has everyone had a chance to look at the invoice from Taisu Kim? Yes. Are there any questions about what's being invoiced or the period?
No.
No. And whose signature is that? Your signature, Jack?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So have you looked it over?
I have, according to the protocol we came up with last week with the finance department. Other than Arcadis's invoice, Arcadis will be reviewing and vetting all these invoices for you. We'll stamp it as approved for payment and put it on your agenda for the blessing of the committee. Once approved by the committee, then we'll do the appropriate paperwork with the draft minutes to get it into finance for payment.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So the invoice is for schematic design 10% complete through the end of last month. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Andy.
Andrew? And do I have a second?
Second, Bill.
Second from Ann. Or sorry.
It's okay.
Is that Ann? Thanks,
Give
Ann.
it to Bill. He did it first.
Oh, Bill. Okay. Any questions, comments?
Yes,
None? Yes? Who's that?
Jim.
Jim.
Now, just
Jim.
on procedure, typically in my experience, the chairman signs off on the applications in order for the bills to be processed. I don't know if there's a place for that on what you have there or not, but that has always been my experience for the finance department to apply it through the process to get paid.
Yeah, there's no signature line on this particular invoice. And Jack, I don't know if you've had any conversations with the finance people in town.
Yeah, we met with Maria and some of her staff last Wednesday, and she was comfortable with having us do the vetting on behalf of the committee. And then once approved by the full committee, we'll get it into the payment process with our vetting and the committee's approval. But if you want to add another step to where the chair signs off, we could do that. And DocuSign is probably the most convenient way of circulating documents through for that next level of signature.
If the finance department is ready and willing to, process it for payment on that basis, Jack, I mean, I'm not insisting on it. I'm just saying that was always been my experience, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're happy to tailor our process to your needs, but yeah, according to Maria, it's not, this protocol seemed to be appropriate.
All right, very well.
Okay. Any other comments on the invoice from Tai-Soo Kim? Okay, so let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more invoices as the months go on. Next item of business is the architect's project update. Randall, is that you?
That is indeed us. And I have Michael Scott here, and then
Okay.
also Jess Farber from CMTA. We'll take you through a little presentation. Let me see if I can share.
Hey.
Are you all seeing the presentation?
We are. Yes.
Okay. So, Michael?
Hi, everyone. Good to virtually see you all. This meeting is going to go a lot like last time we briefed you. Essentially, we're going to update you and advance everything that we talked about last time. So we're going to quickly look at the summer tasks, and then Jess Farber from CMTA is going to update you on where we took your comments on the mechanical system varieties, and then Randall will update you on some improvements to the building layout and site plan. So real quick, I'll do the project management part of this, not the fun stuff that Jess and Randall are doing. So you know that the traffic study has been, the counting has been complete. As we work through a site plan with you and town staff, we will get that into the traffic model and load it up and start the state traffic application and the land use application process. At the same time, the survey data has been complete, and we are receiving regular updates out of Langdon's drafting department as they continue to add information to the electronic survey. We completed
Michael, this is Andy. Can you
Hi.
share, when you have a working survey, is that something you can share with us?
Happy to do so. I would not be comfortable sharing it with you yet.
That's fine.
But as soon as we get a document together, I'll give it to you as in all the file formats. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Very good. We had a follow-up meeting with the educators to just vet some of the building updates that Randall will be showing you today, and got some good feedback on that. And tomorrow, the geotechnical investigations will start on site down in the lower field, the pit. They'll be doing their borings to investigate this is not for the geothermal investigation. This is just to ascertain the suitability of the ground for structure and groundwater. The building and site hazmat continues. They did sampling in the building last week, and that will continue this week. The site hazmat will include some select borings at areas of concern that will occur in mid-August. And we're working with town staff to get together with them on a working meeting now that we've got some building plans that we feel good about, and we'll share with you some initial site thoughts. We can sit down with engineering, public safety, Parks and Rec, and get their comments. So plugging along through this, I expect the staff meeting with the engineering department to occur next week. Any questions on what I just discussed there? Very good. Thanks.
Jess, I think you're up.
Like it's my turn. Thanks, Randall. Well, thanks for everybody for letting me be here tonight. Going to give you an update on our HVAC system selection process we've been through in the past few weeks. If you can go to the next slide, Randall. So if you recall from last time, this is a recap of some things we talked about last time that Ben, my colleague, presented. So we had 4 options we presented to you last time. We added a 5th option at the end of that, which is the ground source VRF, which is actually option number 4 in this presentation. And so that's what we're looking at today. So what we've done since then is refine these and getting some cost numbers to it so you can see what the order of magnitude of first cost would be relative to the systems to each other. So next slide, please. So this is kind of a quick recap of all 5 of the options. You can look at them here. They are all electric options, 0 emissions, 0 natural gas, a range of air source heating versus ground source heating with different terminal heating and cooling systems, where we have fan coils, chilled beams. We added the variable refrigerant flow system, again, option 4. Then the geothermal heat pumps, distributed heat pumps is option 5. So those are the high level review of those 5 systems we're looking at. Next. And then for each one of these, we did these pros and cons. So again, this slide you saw last time, the pros and cons of the air source heat pumps. They all have different price points. They all have different benefits of building program and operating costs and whatnot and life cycle costs. So kind of going to skip through these quickly to get to the punchline here, showing you what the costs are, because that's really where it comes down to. Maybe we could stop on number 4 real quick. We didn't talk about this last time. If you can go back up one, Randall. The variable refrigerant flow system is new to this comparison. So we could talk about it ad nauseum if you'd like, but basically it's a system that does have a lower energy consumption compared to some of the others. It has a centralized compressor system with it. There is a first cost associated with it that's higher than some of the others. Probably the biggest con to this is there is a large amount of refrigerant volume within that system and monitoring that does have to occur within it. So it does require some specialized service maintenance to take care of those systems, but that's just kind of one of the things you get with that system. So if we can move, go ahead.
Jess, is that a third-party expense, or is that something that the staff of the Board of Ed can take care of?
Generally, I don't know your staff that well to know, but generally a third party would be needed for that. It's a pretty sophisticated system. You might have the ability to do it, but we'd have to kind of talk through that a little bit more to see if you'd want to do that. If you don't have one in your town right now, it probably would require a third party. Is my gut reaction to that. Yeah.
Can you define the term monitoring?
So this system has refrigerant piping that connects all of the interior heating and cooling units. So there's a large network of piping that contains refrigerant. If there should be a leak within that system and refrigerant were to leak in the building, there's monitoring of that has to happen within the spaces to because refrigerant displaces oxygen, which creates problems for breathing. And so there's monitoring within those systems that have to occur within the occupant levels to make sure it hasn't leaked. And that's generally done at the actual at the central system itself. It's not done like we wouldn't have sensors all over the building, but it'd be at the central, at each main central plant piece of equipment. Does that help answer your question?
Yes. So if a system loses pressure, it flags to say
Correct.
something's
Correct.
something's
And you
amiss.
would, correct. And you would know the way these systems work is it would be broken up into zones across the building. Certain, large square footage areas we portion to this. So you would know if system one failed, we would know that the second floor of the classroom wing has an issue, and that you would know that through the building automation system that would alert facilities to say that we have a problem. Yes.
With the new refrigerants that are in constant revision.
Yeah.
I know as the flavor of the month changes, so does the price tag, and the price tag always moves upward.
Correct.
So as you say, large volume of refrigerant in this system means a large oil, large tank that needs to be filled if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and the pricing and the evaluation is based on the newer refrigerants, which is actually requiring some of this monitoring that we didn't have to have before because of the refrigerant type that's being applied to these systems. So yeah, there's a level of monitoring that would be required on a 24/7 basis, which the building automation would do that for you. It's not like you have to sit there and watch a screen on the wall saying something's wrong, but you would have to some alarm would have to be sent automatically to somebody saying, "Hey, we have a problem."
Are the current crop of refrigerants in use on a system like this among those that are considered flammable?
Yes, they are flammable. They're more flammable than the previous generation of refrigerants that were used in these system types.
Thank you.
Sure.
I would just jump in here. One of the things that we're seeing because we have a VRF project right now in progress under construction is that they change these, as you mentioned, Jack, from time to time. Every 5 to 10 years new regulations come out, and some systems are no longer, refrigerants are no longer used. With this latest crop of refrigerants, the old equipment can't run on the new refrigerant. So we can design a system that works with refrigerants today, but say 25 years from now, if they change the refrigerants, they may not work with the equipment you still have in your building. Now, having said that, once they phase them out, they're still available. But the prices continue to rise since they're no longer being manufactured, and it just becomes much more of a challenge to replace and upgrade your
Right.
systems.
It used to be that R22 was the most common refrigerant that everybody had. Everybody's house had R22 to heat and cool their houses. And that was no longer manufactured. You can still get it. The price just goes up and up and up because there's limited demand. And then it switched to 410A, which there's, tons of that available in the market. Like it would be a long time till you would have to worry about not having 410A. But again, once they stop making it, the prices start to jump. And so now we're into the alternative refrigerants. The same thing will happen over time. It's not like you would be without that refrigerant, just the price of dealing with it would go up over time as that one then transitions out into something new. So
I see there's a hand raised. Bill?
Yeah, just quick question. I mean, is there an option or is it feasible to ever pre-buy and avoid, always paying the inflation or the increased cost because of the design changes and, like you said, then the availability decreases?
You could buy tanks of this stuff and set it in your mechanical rooms or store it somewhere you'd like to store it. It comes obviously in pressurized containers of certain volumes that would have to be placed somewhere, but yes, that could be done.
Okay, thank you.
But I think what we'd have to look at probably more detail to that would be is if we looked at because the one benefit to the system is that It is zoned. Okay, so you're going to have, again, if I take the classroom, one of the classroom wings, maybe be a zone of VRF and have a certain volume of refrigerant. We could then maybe store one of those charges. You wouldn't need to store the charge for the entire building because you're not going to, well, I mean, I guess anything's possible, but you wouldn't lose the charge of every single system within the building at the same time. But once you use that stored volume, you'd have to replace it with something else. So I don't know that you'd be able to store, every bit of volume, but you could definitely store a charge if you'd like to do that.
And one quick related question. I mean, the storage of something flammable, would that have to be considered, you'd have to have it in a special location?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
We'd have to understand the volumes. We'd have to understand how much we could place into a room. It could be that we just have to design a room with a certain fire rating that could handle that volume, like storing gasoline in the storage building. It's the same kind of thing. We'd have to look at what the code says, how to design that room, whether you want it here in this building or whether you have somewhere off site you'd like to do it, or whether a vendor stores it for you. Those are different options you could consider.
Thank you.
If you had a preferred vendor you worked with, maybe best to have them store it for you because they might have the resources to do that without you building it, but something we could think about.
Anne has a question.
So just excuse my naivete because I don't really know all that much about this, but so can this unit use different types of refrigerant? Or if we have one refrigerant, are we stuck with that forever?
Yeah, so that's what Randall was describing, is that the
Okay.
systems are designed based on a specific refrigerant.
Okay.
So that in the future, just what's happening right now is we were using 410A as the refrigerant, and that has changed because that's being migrated out. And this new charge, while it may work, it won't work this way it's supposed to in that system as designed. So what that means is the piping might not be sized properly. So if you're looking to maybe do a future expansion or some sort of maintenance replacement, there could be an impact on the sizing of the piping distribution within that building. There could be an impact. It gets a little more
Thank you.
complicated once you start looking at that. Yep.
I totally get it. Thank you.
Sure. Didn't mean to get too far into the weeds on this, but it is an important conversation to have. So then this next slide, if there's no other questions, I'll move on here to this next slide here, which is really an overall comparison of the energy use intensity, which we've talked about many times with you before. You can see it stair stepping from the left to right. The lower the EUI, the less energy you use, the less energy it costs you. So we focus to the right, gives you the best performance in terms of energy dollars. However, the cost of systems go up with that as well. So you can kind of see with the different options we considered, we have a good range of options to choose from at different price points and different energy efficiencies, and the incentives change with it, and the O&M changes with it as well. So it's just a good kind of quick graphic summary of all the options we're looking at relative to each other. Next. So here's the fun part. So now we're going to get into a little bit about what the zero energy implications of the different system options we are looking at here would be. So this first slide gives us a description of the amount of solar renewable panels we would need to get to zero energy. So if I have a HVAC system where a building uses more energy, I need more solar renewable panels to offset that energy in the course of the year. Therefore, I need a larger array of panels to do that. So that's what this slide is saying, that if you look from left to right, option 1 needs 1.25 megawatts. Option 2 needs 1 megawatt. Chilled beams needs a megawatt. VRF is 900, and distributed heat pumps is 785. And so that costs less the more efficient you get. So from left to right, you see the efficiency getting better, and the size of that array going down. And the amount of roof area we need is impacted by that as well. So when we look at the size of the system, we need about 75,000 square feet of roof area to create zero energy. And if we don't have that, we have to go offsite with canopies or something else to create that zero energy difference to get the total array size. And so we've worked with Bismarck to get some pricing here on these costs of these systems. So the total cost for PV, you can see on the second from the bottom, it ranges from 3.3 million all the way down to 2.1 million, depending on the system option we choose. So that is a factor into what we're going to show you next in terms of the total cost of ownership of these systems. The other thing that is different between these 5 systems is they all have different space and programmatic implications that come with them. So the distributed water source heat pump takes room that maybe we wouldn't need for a chilled beam system. So you can see that on the bottom row, we need 4,200 square feet of space for heat pumps to place them on the ground for service and maintenance, whereas chilled beam doesn't have that requirement, so we need less space. So we factored in the differential of area within the options too, to give it as an apples to apples comparison as we can across all 5 options. Any questions on that? A lot of numbers and spreadsheets here, but wanted to kind of present kind of the differences between those to each of you.
Just as an aside, I mean, this is all very interesting. When is it that we need to make an election as to what we're going to try and use for the system? Is that after the school is completely designed?
No, I think once we've come to consensus on the system choice we've picked, we can then do the actual detailed modeling to decide to come up with the actual size of all of this stuff. So these are rule of thumbs and basis based on the experience of projects we've done to get us within range of comparison between these 5 options. So once we decide, our goal here tonight is to say, here's the 1 or 2 or 3 systems we'd like to proceed with into SDs that we would then refine the budgeting for, to then do the detailed modeling for, to say, here's the real number so that you know what you're buying.
I have a question. Would it be wise to have a commissioning agent involved? Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll need, yep. Yeah. We see commissioning agents on pretty much every project that we do.
Yeah, John. In fact, we are in the process very shortly of hiring a commissioning agent that's going to get on board very shortly. So that's in process. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
Yep. And we can help you with the scope and proposals with that as well, Joe. If you need our assistance, we're happy to help give you some details for that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Question
Joe,
regarding the total dollars for PV. Is that including the cost of any canopy structures
Yes.
that would be recorded? Okay, so it's an all
Yeah,
inclusive.
right. So what you see is the dollars per watt. If you actually divided like the watts of the system and the dollars, you'd see the most cost-effective system would be completely on the roof, because we're designing the building structure to accommodate that. It's baked into the building. Once we start getting into canopies, we're having to then build a whole structure just to hold the PV panels. That's a whole kind of extra cost that you wouldn't have incurred otherwise. So that's baked into those numbers.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on this slide? All right, let's move on to the punchline.
So,
Good.
the numbers that we're about to show you, and some of the numbers we've already shown you, came from Bismarck. We had feed them some narratives of the systems that we're talking about, and some design parameters, some of which Jess just showed you, in terms of square footage of PVs on the roof versus ground mounted canopy structures. And they did more than, quite frankly, I even anticipated. Rather than a sort of square foot cost per system, they actually went through and kind of did a more detailed takeoff of the systems. And you can see here some of the components that they went and estimated for all of the systems. And then you get to the sort of the total HVAC cost, which is that first line there, which is just the mechanical systems. And then below that is the PV cost that we were just talking about, the roof PV versus the ground canopy PV costs. And then below that, you'll see the HVAC space cost. And that's where, when Jess talked about different systems have different space requirements, they put a cost of what that space, value of that space that you need to create. And that's added in. And that gets us to the total cost that you can see down below for all these different options.
So this gives us the best way to really get an apples to apples comparison when you look at cost of zero energy, cost of program, cost of system. It gives us a good way to look at it in a unified manner.
Could you make that spreadsheet a little bigger? It's very hard to read the white on the tan background. I can't tell if it's a 14 or a 16.
Yeah.
Well, we got them on the next slide. We have them on the next slide.
Well, that's true.
They're on the next slide, right?
Yeah, maybe it'll be easy to read there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put it big and bold next time. Sorry about that.
It's
Go-
probably
go-
a technique there, Greg.
And
that
we'll
you-
share this with you obviously after the fact here. This is hot off the
Right.
presses, right? So we'll share this with the
Can,
team
can we
afterwards.
go back one image, please, to the breakdown?
Certainly.
In here, I know last meeting we talked about, I asked my perennial question about freeze proofing. What accommodations are made in these breakdowns, if any, that would provide us with an alternative, well, to grid power? Should the power go off in February, how are we going to freeze proof the building? Is there, I know we'll have a generator regardless for our life safety systems and for the kitchen fridge and freezer
Yeah,
system.
this doesn't carry any cost for the generator, or upsizing the generator to take care of some of these heating systems. We could be looking at batteries as well to potentially help with some of that, but that's not factored into this, into these numbers we're presenting tonight.
Thank you.
We will definitely do that. It's important that we do that, and we'll look at it across the board, but it'll have an impact on all 5 of these options regardless. So then this chart here is all very colorful. So, green is good, red is not good. So that's really kind of the summary of what we look at here. So if you go from left to right of the 5 different options, what we have in the top line is the dollars per square foot. Sometimes easier to look at smaller numbers here. So when you look at the dollars per square foot, that is the cost of the HVAC, the cost of the PV, and the cost of the program impacts of that system. So that includes all 3 of those buckets in that dollar per square foot number across the top line. So you can see it in dollar per square foot as also in absolute millions of dollars across all 3. So that's what that top row is. The second one is our estimated energy use intensity based on our experience with these types of systems and modeling we've done and performance of buildings. So you can see it kind of works itself left to right from highest to lowest. So again, the lower the EUI, the less impact on the PV cost. So that's where you see that buried in those first cost numbers. And you look at just the maintenance and simplicity and aesthetics. We just put a good, better, best. I think we presented this last time just to give you just a general sense of options. There's not a system that checks every single box. It doesn't work that way. But we're trying to check as many boxes as we can long term. And then when this whole thing boils down to the bottom line, we're looking at a 30-year life cycle cost, which gives that total cost of ownership of these systems. So that life cycle cost includes these first cost numbers are on the top row, but then the ongoing annual operating and maintenance costs that occur over a 30-year period, plus replacement costs that would occur. So that's really what it looks like. You can compare first cost, but life cycle cost is what you're going to pay as a town over the life of this building. And this will be much more than a 30-year building. So we're just looking at 30 years for this example. So you can see from left to right, again, the 4-pipe air source system, again, it's an air source system, so it's less efficient. We expect it to have a higher life cycle cost that's 57 million, which you'd see over 30 years, whereas the geothermal distributed on the other end is 42 million. So there's a pretty big range there that you would see in terms of a life cycle cost. So I think I've even said this before, it's a pay me now, pay me later kind of scenario. You're going to buy it now, or you're going to buy it out over 30 years over time. And so that's kind of what you see with that chart. And each one kind of has its own stair steps down in terms of life cycle cost. Any questions? We have a chart. Again, we got a spreadsheet version. We also have a line graph version. It might be easier to look at if you want to go to the next slide, Randall.
Yeah, just before you do that, I just had
Sure.
one question on the
Sure.
geothermal well field size. Does that change in any of these columns?
It does. So the less efficient the system, the bigger the well field will be. And so that's buried in the cost numbers as well, Joe. So the distributed heat pump system the one on the far right would have the smallest well field. And then the VRF needs a little bit more, Chilby a little bit more because of the energy use intensity that we have to apply to the ground on an annual basis.
So that's captured in those numbers.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just as Andy, I also have a question.
Sure.
You're looking at this, your chart. It would almost seem ludicrous if we did anything other than pick the 5th option. And so what I'm thinking is what's the downside of this? I mean, in every category, it's either the cheapest or the best, or at least neutral compared to the others.
Correct.
And I mean, there's got to be a con here. There's got to be a reason not to use this.
The con to the distributed heat pump system, it costs you more upfront to buy it on day one. So if you cannot afford that in your budget, then that's why it falls apart. That's why that system wouldn't why we see that come off. But if you
So
keep on day one,
the 42 million 30-year life cost doesn't include the initial acquisition cost.
it does. It does. Yes, that's in the initial piece. So if you look on the top row, the geothermal system is 17.6 million, whereas the four pipe fan coil is 16 million. So it's $1 million cheaper. So if we were backed into a corner and we said we just don't have $1 million, the only way to save that is by doing that system, then that's what you would do. So, and it happens. I mean, I have projects in Rhode Island that they just couldn't, something had to give. And so we have that system on the left, we are doing that being installed in a high school in Rhode Island right now because of that exact reason.
And again, just ask this in a sort of simplistic way. Is the suggestion of this chart, if we spend $1 million more upfront as access, we will save $15 million over a 30-year life cycle?
That is correct.
So 500,000. So within, I mean, I'm not sure if you can amortize it on an equal basis, but again, simplistically, over the first 2 years of use, we would effectively potentially match the extra expense that we spent initially.
Yeah, there's a payback to that differential that you would see over the course of the life of the system. Yes.
Yeah. Andy, it's actually better than that because as you remember, the state is paying a portion of the capital cost of this building.
Right.
So the state pays for some of that cost
we get
upfront, we get the full life cycle
correct
cost savings. So
you get
it's
an
added benefit.
You get all the benefit of the savings, and you also get the benefit of the incentives that come from Energize CT. You get all of that money back as well. And should it come to fruition, the Inflation Reduction Act still is alive related to geothermal systems. It did not get cut from the big beautiful bill that passed on July 4th. So depending on when we can get this project up and running, there may be still some money there from federal government. Again, that's not presented today because it's kind of a wild card, but that is still out there and wasn't hacked out of law a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there's a component to the heat pump, spatial component. There's a chunk of space that's really needed to hold these heat pumps. These heat pumps typically serve a couple of rooms or 3 rooms, depending on how Jess and his team puts together. But you're buying some square footage, and that's accounted in the earlier chart. If you want to go back a couple, you were not here at the meeting when we talked about it, but that is one of the issues with the fifth column.
Yeah, and that is in those numbers. So those dollars per square foot numbers do include the spatial implications that are associated with each option. So that's it's baked into those numbers as well. So it's not like, oh, hey, we got to add $1 million because I forgot to tell you about all the space we need for the system. That's already in those numbers.
Let me just jump in quick before you speak real quickly, Randy. I just want to clarify what you just said about the savings is correct, and certainly about the state reimbursement, but it is a reimbursement. Okay, so the town we pay for it first.
Yes.
And then we apply for reimbursement, and if it's eligible, it gets reimbursed at the percentage we have for the project. But your point about having the money up front is an accurate one because we pay first.
Yep.
So if the bids come in where we hope they are, we can probably afford it, but that remains to be seen. So
So as an example to that, we've done systems or designs to where we've carried, the geothermal heat pump system on the right is preferred for a lot of different reasons. However, it has a higher price point. Can we develop a option B that we can pivot to an add alternate or deduct alternate to still allow us to afford, without having to do total redesigns? Or another way to do that in terms of having a kind of a way out should the market go astray 2 years from now when this thing bids, who knows, right? So that always is a risk we have to take.
I hate to even raise this at this point. Joe, you probably know the ultimate budget that we have for the project. What kind of contingency do we have in there? Is it a 10% contingency?
And I know we have a contingency. I just don't have that number at the tip of my fingers.
Okay,
But that
Okay.
number
I
is
mean,
that's an all-inclusive number. So it
Right,
covers
exactly right.
everything from stem to stern, a
exactly
whole
right.
enchilada.
Well, that's why I didn't want to necessarily tap
Yeah.
that now, but ultimately, there is a pile of money that is unaccounted for to cover overages or things that we wind up adding to the facility that aren't currently accounted for.
Well, there's an owner's contingency and the construction manager contingency. So we don't get to control their contingency, but that can be discussed if necessary.
Andrew, we're coming out of our meeting with finance last week. We are working on the master budget. There was a version of it that was prepared pre-referendum. We're going through and vetting all those numbers in order to create kind of a starting point master budget for the project now that we're in motion.
Right.
So we anticipate having a number to share with you on owner contingency for the next meeting.
Great.
It would in practice, it's somewhere between 3 and 8%. It's not going to be 10%. I don't recall seeing that numbers in the referendum budget that were that robust. Question regarding
no memorial yet, thank God.
Question regarding the maintainability. When we talked last meeting about the distributed heat pumps, in addition to the square footage required for the individual closets, there was a conversation about needing to service umpteen number of individual compressors throughout the building, whereas other systems had a centralized mechanical room with the heat pumps located in one place. Having run operations for a school district once upon a time, I would look at all of those individual compressors and the air handling equipment required for each to be on par with what we're looking for as far as a maintainability profile as individual fan coils serving those zones as well. What pushes your evaluation into best versus good or fair?
What we've found is that they are reliable pieces of equipment. Each of those heat pumps is a 2-ton self-contained refrigeration system, or 4 tons, or whatever the size needs to be to take care of those classrooms. It's manufactured that way. So seldom do we see, not that there'll be compressor failures, it's just the nature of the beast, but we don't see them across our portfolio as being a red flag in terms of often does it happen. And there's warranties that come with it to help with that for a period of time as well. So what we do for those units is one reason why we have allocated square footage is we recommend this equipment be placed on the floor so it can be serviced. And so we want that unit to be in a mechanical closet that you can get to, accessible from the corridor, not having to get into the educational space to get to take care of that. Whereas a fan coil unit is going to be above a ceiling, it gets to be a little bit more difficult to take care of because we're not going to put them in the classrooms because those are noisy. Used to be you put unit ventilators and fan coils on the floor. We just don't do that anymore for acoustics in the classroom learning environment. So those would be above a ceiling. I guess we could put them in a closet if you wanted to consider that as well. But that's typically you see a fan coil above a ceiling and you're dealing with filters and controls for that. So really only difference would be is the being above ceiling versus not being above ceiling.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Jess, I have a question about the system. I'm sorry, was that somebody else who wanted to ask a question?
That was me. That was me. I was going to add on to that, but you go.
Oh, okay. It has to do with heat recovery on the air side. Is that included in these numbers?
Yeah, so each of these systems would have dedicated outside air systems that would have energy recovery on the air side. So all of those would have that across the board. So that's where you would get that energy recovery, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
But I forgot what I was going to say, so let's move on. I forgot what I was going to say. It happens.
relative to the old menswear commercial about an educated consumer is the best customer. Do we have square foot cost and annual operating benchmarks for a conventional system? I know one of your previous graphics here showed with the EUI, talking about a cooling tower and condensing gas boilers, as a conventional
Yeah, we
system
don't.
type that was
Yeah,
on that graph.
yeah, we don't have that in this analysis at this point in time. I guess we were under the impression that wasn't desired. We can do that if it would help compare the two, but the gas-fired system throw a wrench into the zero energy goal that we're trying to meet in terms of offsetting gas with panels just doesn't make a lot of sense. So we don't see that a whole lot, but we can run some first cost differentials for you if you'd like to see that for sure.
Yeah, I think, to be able to say, this is the plain vanilla, kind of what you've been doing,
Yeah.
this, and then these, among these five choices as the doing better. But to
Right.
be able to show initial cost and 30-year life cycle for the plain vanilla system versus the march towards.
So like a air-cooled chiller condensing boiler type of scenario. Is that what you're thinking, John?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Okay.
And then, again, if we were basing our out of the five saying, okay, let's do chilled beams, because any type of
Right.
carbon-free or conventional hot and cold water system can be put through that.
Correct.
That becomes a real apples and oranges
Yeah.
comparison
Sure.
with similar terminal equipment.
Sure. Well, fan coils is the same way. So you could do the same thing
Yeah.
with fan coils. It could be chiller boiler, whether it's air source or not, is
Right.
the same kind of thing. So yeah, we can apply that to that option just for the sake of comparison. Yeah.
And then, if, with the conversation of, we only have so many appropriated dollars,
Yep.
And, show, yes, the investment from plain vanilla to what we prefer is X, and then
Mhm.
look at, what the savings long-term is from plain vanilla to X.
Correct. Just know that if we go with boilers, there's emissions that come along with that have to be factored into that thought process in terms of on-site carbon emissions.
Right.
Yeah. So this slide is just really a slide, a graphical representation of all of those numbers. So it's really telling us the same thing, but in a line chart. So it shows us that if you look across the bottom, again, you have the same five options. You have the air source heat pumps, the hybrid, the chilled beam, VRF, and ground source heat pumps. And you can see the first cost versus the long-term cost stretched out over time. And then kind of in the middle of the page, you see, VRF would typically need some sort of replacement sooner than later compared to others. And so we apply that there. And that's why you see some stair stepping of those numbers in there. So again, just another way to represent. Sometimes the spreadsheets get to be mind numbing to look at. So this line chart may be a little bit easier for people to visualize what we're talking about in terms of the cost on the left is what I buy on day one. On the far right is what I pay for over a 30-year period or 40 or 50 or whatever you want the time to be. That's what you see over the life of that system. And we've also included in here, you can see like at year 2, you see a little dip down. That's where we would apply the Energize CT incentive dollars. So each of those systems would be able to apply for a certain amount of rebates back. I think the comment made earlier, same thing. You still have to invest in these systems to get those rebates or incentives back. But we would go through all those processes we've done many times before in order to see those dollars come back to you as a reimbursement to what you borrowed. So it's just another way to show the same information. And again, this is a lot we throw at you tonight, and we'll pass this on. You can study it in more detail, and we can obviously answer more questions. We'll go back and provide additional information on what a traditional system kind of how that would roll into this, just for that point of comparison. That won't take us that much time to do, and get that back to the team.
Yeah, Jess, and if you could give some thought to the emergency generator question that Jack brought up before, and what solutions do owners have to protect the building?
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a wide range of solutions, whether we just buy a bigger generator or whether we're putting a plug on the wall and you can roll up a generator. So there's a wide range of variety of options of how you might apply depending on, the critical nature of how you need to take care of this building for freeze
Yeah, I
protection.
mean, obviously we can run sections of the building at a time and sort of go, round robin.
Yep.
This
Correct.
building is not necessarily going to be occupied
Right.
during that kind of event, so it's not
Right.
that kind of issue. But certainly, we want to protect life safety. We want to protect the sprinkler system.
Correct.
We want to protect any kind of food products in the kitchen, stuff
Correct.
like that. So just give some thought to that about
Yep.
what kind of loads are we looking at and
Yep.
what you think our KW will be on our generator.
We can do that for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the committee? I think that's the end of my slides, Randall, if I'm not wrong.
You are correct.
Good. I'm off the
So-
hot seat. I'm off the hot seat for a second.
Yeah, so we will be looking to get at least a narrowing of the list of these HVAC options in the next meeting or two, so that when we provide a package to Bismarck to estimate for SD, we want to get it down to, 2 or 3 options that we seriously think are in contention, so we can spend more time focusing on those. So we'll follow up with some more information that you've just asked for, but we do need everyone to start zeroing in. I know Kevin is also reaching out to Manchester, where we've installed the ground source heat pumps. We also have chill beams in Manchester, and he was going to have some conversations with their facilities people. So that will also factor into your ultimate decisions into which
Randall,
systems.
does the decision also dependent on the geothermal testing that's in the process of being done?
No. In general, in our experience, and Jess, you can jump in if you want, we have a pretty good idea of how many wells you're going to need for each of these systems. The geothermal test well generally moves the needle maybe 10% or less. It's usually not a huge swing. Jess, I don't know if you've had an experience.
No, that's been our experience. It's very seldom in my career. I've been doing these systems since the late 90s, and there's only a handful, less than my 5 fingers, where I can say where it was not even viable, and that just doesn't happen very often. So it really just moves the needle. Whether it's like for the projects we did in Manchester, the first one we did, we needed, I don't know, making this up, 60 wells, but the second one we needed 66 wells because the thermal conductivity just wasn't as good at that site compared to the one for the first school. So we could see that kind of variation is probably what we would see, but we're trying to be conservative at this level with the numbers we're placing, because again, it is SDs, and we don't want to create any more surprises than we need to in terms of what these costs would be. So we try to be conservative with that approach that we're at today. So I remembered what I was trying to remember earlier, is that, I think Randall mentioned town of Manchester, that you can obviously reach out and talk about the 2 of the systems are applied there. And we're happy to walk through those with you to kick the tires on to see them. So you can actually, look at, so you can understand the complexity or whatever that comes along with these systems. That really goes a long way to say, here's really what we're talking about with these distributed heat pumps or the chill beams or whatever. There's that goes a long way. If you want to do that, we're happy to help facilitate that on our end as much as we can.
Well, I have a question for Randall. I mean, do you have a recommendation for the project?
Well, I think somebody mentioned, say, why wouldn't everyone just pick the ground source heat pumps? I mean, they check all the boxes, and so that would be our recommendation. All the net zero schools that we've done 4, are ground source heat pumps. But as Jess pointed out, budget is an issue, and so we would want to look at a couple other options in case we find ourselves up against a budget problem, to have a plan B, and then comfortability your comfort level with the system. And that's where, Kevin and his staff need to be able to operate the system. And if they see it and just sort of like, no, no way. I mean, my people just cannot run a system like this. Then that's something we need to know. And then my opinion would change. Because if you can't run it, it's not going to work and you're not going to be net zero anyway. That's kind of where my head's at. And the VRF, we've done a lot of VRF, but we had a long conversation tonight about the change in refrigerants, and I'm in the midst of that right now on a project that has a long construction duration, and refrigerants are changing in the middle of it, and it's a huge problem. And it's yeah, I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I'm a little down on VRF right now. Prior to this particular project, like I said, I've used it a lot. We're also using chilled beams right now. I was surprised that they're as expensive as they are in this analysis. I believe it. So that was a little disappointing because there are some advantages to chilled beams, but the cost here is not good. There was something else with chilled beams.
Well, Randall, I too was kind of taken aback by that surcharge there on the chilled beam system, because we've got several recent projects there, and they were, among the more competitive. I won't say cheaper, but definitely competitive. Is there, Ralph, any comment from Bismarck on what was driving that number higher?
Yeah, we could reassess it. This is just, we have two other projects that are further along in the estimating. So right now, those are live numbers we have on two other projects. We could definitely analyze that and look into the chilled beams. As Randall mentioned, I think number 5 is probably the best option, but that's just an opinion off contractor putting it together.
If chilled beams is something you're familiar with and comfortable with, we could carry that through. And again, I think part of the point Randall's making is if we can shortlist it and we can do a better deep dive into some of these, we can try to refine on our end as well in terms of the sizing of those systems, work with Greg's team to come up with a reduced cost maybe. But I don't know that it would change. Like, I'm not sure we would cut $5 million out of it, but we could definitely look to refine those numbers if that's something you're comfortable with in terms of a system type.
I have one other question, if I could. I remember asking about the ground wells, whether rock was an issue, and I was told no, but water could be.
Correct.
So how do you know until you do the geothermal whether
You
there's
don't. Yeah, you don't. You really don't know. And I think generally water is a good thing as well. Water helps to move heat away. Sometimes we run into where there's just so much water, we get Old Faithful, and we're dealing with just massive amounts of water. It becomes a construction challenge because of the dewatering that we have to do, because we can't let that water just run off the site. So that's really where the complication comes into. And so what we would do is with that test, say, as an example, we drill a 600-foot well. Let's say we do hit water, maybe an excessive amount, about 400 feet. We could then design the wells to kind of be above that threshold in terms of how we would apply that to the well field sizing. So it gives us information to be able to react to how we might size that well field. But again, that just doesn't happen very often. Generally, water is a good thing. Moving water is good. It helps reduce the well field, honestly, over time, and how many wells we have to put in on day one. It's just a matter of whether we hit just crazy amounts of water is an issue. And I've encountered that once in my career.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on. So last time we had presented, 4 different options, and we had some discussion about the pluses and minuses of them all. And the consensus was sort of to do a combined option of taking options 2 and 3 and taking the best aspects of both of those and moving forward with something along those lines. And so we've done that. We literally sort of combined the options, laid it out. We made some of the adjustments that were talked about as well, flipping the black box with the cafeteria. We've fine tune some of the programmatic spaces again. We continue to dive into the ed spec and talk with the administrators. And so this is kind of literally combining those options. And then since then, we've taken this and sort of refined it some more and brought it to what we're calling option 6, which is a more developed version of this that also speaks to some of the issues that Jess and his team are always concerned about, which is exposure, north and south versus east-west facing classrooms, exterior envelope, can we condense the building and make it more compact? These are all things that will help us ultimately get to a lower EUI. And so this option has sort of developed into something more along these lines. And in the upper left, you kind of see a diagram of what we have going on here. So there are sort of two different geometries on the site. One is the entry drive, which basically goes east-west, but it has a little bit of an angle to it relative to a straight east-west axis. And then the other is a due north-south kind of axis, which is kind of what we want for the building. And I think actually the last meeting, Joe even mentioned something about that, about the orientation and looking at that more closely and getting it closer to more north-south. So we've done that. We've taken the building and made all the classroom spaces basically, with a few exceptions, facing basically either due north or due south. But then we've taken that road geometry and used that to create kind of a little bit of a diagonal that on one hand responds to the street, and the other hand kind of allows us to step the building massing back a little bit away from the edge of the pit, because there's that big grade change and we need to stay back far enough from that to allow access and service. And so it provides a mechanism for us to kind of develop the building. And so again, looking at this the main floor, again, you enter in the middle and then you go down a level and up a level. We now have laid out the entire administrative wing with all the spaces and the program size. Their exact locations may continue to be adjusted, but we know that we have the square footage now. We've also laid out the entire nurses suite. So we have an admin wing that essentially we know can work. We'll continue to develop that. We've added more detail to the unified arts wing, including some of the required storage spaces. We've also taken the planetarium, and which it used to be sort of out in front, and we've moved it sort of a little bit inside the building footprint so that it's not quite as prominent as it was. We set it up with its own entrance so that it can be used after hours. It can be completely closed off. In our conversations with the administration, we're going to move these toilets around to this corridor that the planetarium is on so that you have access to bathrooms after hours, and you could just open the planetarium. It would be self-sufficient and the rest of the school could be completely closed off. We have loading in the custodial area and some utility space right in the north east corner now. And that's where service for the cafeteria would come in. The kitchen is now in the middle. Cafeteria is out to the end. That we talked about that. So you have more access to daylight, more access to the outdoor dining, access to views of the play field. Kitchen's in the middle, and then we have the black box further in. We're using this sort of angled geometry to kind of create a little larger gathering space in the middle of the building, so that when all these people come out at intermission or whatever out of the black box, there's some extra elbow room. The same with the gym. As people exit out, there's just a little bit more space here for all that kind of activity. We've also right-sized the gym now based on a full basketball court running east-west with proper clearances and with bleacher seating. And at the same time, running north-south, you can have two smaller courts, which would be regulation width, but would be a little bit short. So you could still run a full half-court practice, two separate half-court practices for boys and girls with a divider curtain. We have the auxiliary gym. We've located the office now where they have visual line of sight between the auxiliary gym and the main gym. They also are right across the hall from the changing areas. And these were comments that we had received from the administration. We have all the choral band and orchestra spaces with their musical storage in between to help provide some acoustic separation, faculty dining close to the kitchen and the cafeteria, but in a separate space. And then as you move on down, we have sort of special ed spaces, speech and language, special ed office, skills classroom, and the self-contained classroom. And then we have our two classroom wings. This would be, say, seventh grade. Maybe it's the sixth grade on the lower level, seventh and middle, and then maybe eighth high. These have not changed a whole lot. We still have these breakout areas at the end to sort of take advantage of, some really nice views. And you would still come down, there'd be a kind of a grand stair that would take either down or up to the lower or upper floors overlooking the library media center. Last time, we had talked about flipping the flex classroom, the science rooms to this side so that we don't have this big single loaded corridor. Now it's double loaded corridor. And we've located the art room now at the end here on this level. With again facing south, so you get lots of nice natural light. If I go down the stair, there's the library media center with the sort of associated spaces. So the library media center is 2 stories tall where the reading room is, but there are also a lot of smaller spaces associated with that, and those are 1-story spaces like the breakout spaces, the maker space, the technology, the MDF room. And then there's the administrative offices and the production room, all associated with the library media center. We have the same arrangement for the science and flex classrooms. There was also a request from the administration that there be a large breakout space. Although they like having the separate wings to get each into, break each grade into 2 small learning communities, they said it would be nice if there's a spot where they could bring the entire grade together just, for a brief conversation, everyone could get together. So we're trying to right size this space opposite the main stair in conjunction with the flex classroom so that, say, the flex classroom could have overhead doors that could open up, and you could use that in conjunction with this sort of a corridor lobby space, and both groups for 6th and 7th grade or whatever grade can meet together as a unified grade, for a 15-minute conversation. Then you can, disperse into your separate small learning communities. So we're working on getting that size right, but that's kind of the intent with that kind of expanded space. And then as you go to the 3rd floor, again, it's the same layout that we've had. They're all stacked. We have the small learning communities. Up here, we took the opportunity. We had some sort of additional square footage here that was the self-contained classroom below, but we don't have a self-contained classroom at this level. So what we did is we relocated the flex classroom over there, and that allowed us to reduce the footprint on this floor quite a bit, so that we're able to kind of, again, make the building a little bit more compact, a little bit more contained. As far as the site plan goes, we're able to, right now, I think I'm showing about 170 parking spaces. When we sit down with our Langen, who's done the traffic study, and look at sort of current parking counts and parking utilization, we can adjust that. But one of the things you'll see is that between sort of the access drive and the parking, we have a lot of green space. This is a full-size high school soccer field. We can fit 2 very comfortably with a lot of space above and below, so that if it's determined that we need to add another 10 or 20 spaces for the middle school, we can grow this quite easily and still easily accommodate 2 full size soccer fields. So this one, let's say, is going to replace the one that we're going to lose where we build the building. And then this other one is going to be a net add to the town in terms of playing surfaces. Service would come along over to the side here. We're talking to Kevin Dion about the size of the truck that he needs, and we'll kind of overlay turning templates so that we can back up a large truck and get service to work there. Michael mentioned we're trying to set up a meeting with town staff to look at all the issues associated with the site and planning, but we're anticipating the need for an access road and we're thinking probably the best place is along this edge here, that a fire truck could get down or an emergency vehicle and get back to what is now kind of a gravel area outside that maintenance shed. And then it could connect to what is now the small little kind of access drive that runs around the edge of the playfields as it is. So now that would sort of complete that loop and you could kind of circle the entire complex. We have two separate sort of parking areas. Our thought is, one is sort of staff, the other is kind of visitor. This would be, say, the bus loop, and this would be the car loop. In our conversations with the staff, they pointed out, or administration anyway, that currently, because there's such a shortage of parking at the high school, a lot of high school students are parking over at the middle school, in particular this area of the middle school parking. So as we're looking at the parking counts, they're interested in potentially, continue to provide that parking that the high school is using, but they would like it to be separated from the day-to-day middle school parking. So we talked about possible areas, rather than the high school kids parking in these lots in front of the school, that maybe they continue to park where they do now, kind of in, parking along the drive, that they could just pull in and either pull out and go exit out or back out and head out. But there was discussion about, young high school drivers and backing into a traffic lane seems like probably not the best idea. So we also looked at we talked about these spaces here along the current entrance drive. Again, we have a lot of space there. We could easily accommodate a couple of parking strips where high school students could park and move right along and walk and stay kind of clear of the day-to-day traffic associated with the middle school. So we'll take a look at that and see what the implications are and see where we fall in terms of parking counts. We've also started to look at the massing of the building in more detail based on the plan as it's developing. And so, one of the things about this building is, the access drive is a long way from the front of the building. There's a big green space where the playfields are, then there's parking, then there's a building. So you see it from a distance. And so the silhouette in our minds is kind of important as you look across all this, that the building have an interesting silhouette. And in this case, it kind of almost seems like mountains. You have these folding roofs over the large spaces and over the classrooms that kind of misalign, so that you see kind of, essentially what looks like mountains in the distance. These shapes are actually arranged to work with the program below. So this big hump in the middle is the gym. And this faces north, so there's an opportunity to get a lot of windows on the north side to get in a lot of indirect daylight and not have to deal with a lot of sun control. And then as it rises back up again, that's the black box, again, where we're going to want a lot of volume in that black box theater. Then we get to the kitchen. We don't need a lot of volume in the kitchen, so we bring the roof back down. And then we get to the cafeteria itself, and we bring the roof back up, and we have an opportunity to have some nice windows looking out to the play fields, and maybe some high windows as well to the north. This piece out here is the planetarium. Again, it's sort of now pulled back behind the building wall, but has its own kind of separate entrance. But it's clearly an articulated piece of the building. So if I was coming after hours, it would be pretty clear where I was going to go, and it wouldn't require a whole lot of signage or direction to know where the planetarium is. And then beyond, you can see the different classroom blocks. Looking from the other side, same kind of view. You can see the classroom blocks. Just when I first showed this to Jess, he got all excited from a thermal point of view. He said, "Oh, there's almost no windows. This will be easy to make this a net zero building." The windows are coming. We're just showing kind of the major kind of glazing or window areas that we see for the moment, but every room in the building will have access to windows and daylight. We're kind of not at that level of refinement yet, but you can see in the classroom blocks, where we have those breakout areas, we are showing those as all glass again, because you get these kind of just wonderful views out to the southwest. And then at the entrance, it's kind of a recessed entrance, and it's on the north side. So we have sort of two conflicting things going on here. One, you kind of want a covered entrance. As you come out, to get your umbrella set, or while you're waiting for a parent to drive up or something, covered entrance is a really nice thing to have. But it is the north side, and so we don't want it to be the sort of dark hole that you kind of go into. So we're imagining maybe kind of a glass canopy that serves as an entrance. And recently we did a project where uh, photovoltaic panels are screened onto the glass. So not only does it allow the daylight and cover and shelter, but it serves as a PV system that generates some electricity. And as this will be a net zero building, it's sort of could be a really nice signature moment as you enter the building, that you can see all these PVs right at the main entrance, and as you enter into the building. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I guess I would open it up to comments and questions.
I think Jim had a question at the beginning of your presentation. Jim, do you remember what you were going to ask?
I see Jeff has his hand up.
I don't.
You don't remember? Okay.
No, I don't have a question. That was just up
Okay.
there from before.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Looking at the diagrams for the layout, and I'm hoping that this is correct. There's no classrooms that would not have windows, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Because there are a few, there's not a lot, but there's a few in the current building, and it doesn't create a good learning environment when there's no way to see out. My other part is about like the drop off you were showing a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
Two parts to that. Is there, when the students are being dropped off, or where the students get dropped off, if a parent drops them off in the morning, or like an older sibling going to the high school, and then where the teachers are parking, is there a way to get from where the students are getting let out and when the teachers are getting out of their cars into the building without having to walk across an active driveway where people will be driving through?
Yeah. So on a drop-off situation, like if this is the parent loop, so parents can queue all along here and discharge directly onto a sidewalk, and then they can all funnel right into the main entrance. And the same would be true for buses. Now, if you're in the parking lot itself for staff, currently we're not really showing what you're talking about. We'd have to look at, maybe some feeder sidewalks and some crosswalks or something.
Like if you were in the parking lot to the right, that's the
Yep.
one you're anticipating as the staff one, right? So you would have to walk across that pathway where the cars are letting off the kids.
Well, so I'm imagining the one on the left is the staff parking lot. You're gonna need more staff parking. So the staff would be crossing the bus loop, and there would
okay, that's better.
Yeah, and there would still need to be crosswalks, and that would all have to be more developed than it is here. But to your point, I mean, if there are visitors parking in these spots, they would have to navigate this crosswalk here where the cars are loading and unloading.
Yeah, because sometimes like when they're being dropped off, and especially if it's like an older sibling going to the high school, they sometimes come through a little faster than we'd like them to come through. So if we could somehow eliminate that. The part where in the bus loop, so where the kids come out, where they come in the morning and where they go out, for like staff that's going to be outside with them, is there a way to have some sort of cover so that way if it's a rainy day or something like that, the staff is protected from the elements?
Sure, it's possible. I mean, we could look at one possibly extending the entrance canopy, all the way out, further out, or there could be a separate kind of covered structure, or there could be, not unlike what you have now, there could be just some long canopy piece that runs along the sidewalk for loading. Those are all options. I mean, there's costs associated with all of those, but they're all doable.
Because I mean, you always need to have adults out there during drop off and where the kids are getting on the bus in the afternoon. So that would be, if we're able to do that, that would be nice. And then this one's more of in the area of a pipe dream about like location, how I mentioned to you one other time. Now, I know I was talking with Brian and Katie. The priority is definitely to make sure that the music rooms have direct access out to the outdoor stage, so to speak. And then from the cafeteria or the gym, that the kids have very easy direct access to the outside. But if you can maintain that, and if you can't maintain that, then what I'm going to request will throw out the window. But if you can maintain that where those particular spots have direct access to the outside, for those students, is there a way to get the black box up against the calf or something like that, so that way the black box could be opened and you'd almost like double the size of that space for, I'm thinking like graduation, something like that?
Yeah. So to the first part, the cafeteria and the music spaces having direct access to the outside, that we can do, and that we've done. I think whether it's, a door right off the room outside, or whether you use this corridor and discharge out to a area out here that we can, develop for either, you know, just general seating, or a little performance space, or a little bit of both. So we can accomplish that fairly easily, and I think we're kind of planning on that. There's a challenge with the black box in the cafeteria, is sort of, where does the kitchen go?
Yeah.
To be honest, we did look at turning the kitchen and running the kitchen more east-west, up here, and putting the cafeteria down as a long linear piece this way. But both spaces end up being very long and skinny. And although you could open up a cafeteria like that to the black box, it would be a very strange shaped space. It would be this weird L shape. And so I don't think it really would achieve kind of what you're hoping to do. So I don't know that there's a real good way to allow the black box to expand into the cafeteria. I will say the gym is probably your best bet for, graduation. It's a huge space. If we can provide storage for seating, you could wheel it in there, and you could seat a lot of people in that gym for a graduation event or something.
And then would you be able to have, for example, like a full school assembly in the gym as well, do you think?
Um, let me just check something on my calculator here.
I think we were discussing
Yes. Yes, you would.
Yeah.
Then that would take care of what my question was going to be about a place to have a large space. So if we're able to do it in there, then that accomplishes the goal.
Yeah, I just quickly punched in. You should be able to seat probably about 900 in that in the gym.
All right, then that's great then. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, are you done? Questions?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Anna, you have your hand up.
Yeah, can you go back to like the bigger overlay of the parking? In terms of, if you like and I don't know if you can answer this or if this is for another contractor. In terms of like the in and out traffic, is it going to be one way? So I guess that's to the north of the field where the main thoroughfare is onto Daniels Farms Road.
Mm-hmm.
Are those going to be one ways? Or are they going to be two-way traffic on both sides? Like,
Yeah,
all I can, like, turning, buses turning and kids trying to get in. And I don't know if you can answer that, but that's my question.
yes. So yeah, right now the bus entrance, and bus and staff entrance is a two-way. They're both two-way. So that's, one is bus and staff only, say we sign it. And that's the one to the left. And then the one on the right would be, visitors and parents. And it's also a two-way up until, well, yeah, they're both two-way traffic.
Randall, can you highlight that somehow? Because it's hard to read because you've got the existing aerial photo and then you have the overlay. So it's a little confusing about what is current, what is future.
Yeah. Can I make
if you can do that with a
yeah, I'm trying to see if I can make it fatter here. This pen's real too well, anyway, so this here Can we see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not- so this would be the bus and staff entrance, two-way entrance. They would come down, and then the buses would peel off and around this loop. Staff would directly head into this parking area. And it's really the same layout on the other side right here. This is, two-way traffic. You would come in, parents who are just dropping off and picking up would queue around this outside loop. And then people who are going to actually park would come straight through and then they would park. And then this part of the loop actually would be one way. And it's drawn kind of fat right now because no one would be coming through the loop this way. This in both cases, these loops around the outside would be one-way traffic. And that's kind of why when we were talking about where the high school kids park, the idea of them sort of pulling into parking spaces here and backing into two-way traffic, everyone thought, that's probably not the best thing for people who have just gotten their driver's license. So we have to kind of take another look at how that might work.
Thank you.
Andy, do you have some questions?
Yeah, just had a comment. I think I do like the idea that you have with respect to sort of making the facade of the buildings seem like mountains. However, is there a way, while the rooftops sort of suggest mountains, the rest of the buildings suggest bunkers? And I was wondering whether or not there's any way of, within our budget, making the non-roof components of the building, the exterior, less bunker-like. Just a thought. You don't need to have to answer it now, Randall, but just some thought to making them perhaps having some more architectural uniqueness as opposed to just a square building with a roof on it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I have a little trouble advancing here. What's the problem?
I mean, it looked like there was. It was like interesting with respect to the gym. It looked like it was sort of steepled with windows in the front, but that other than that, the rest of it looked relatively.
Yeah. So
plain.
I'm trying to figure out why I can't. Let's try this again. All right. Let's see if I can. Huh. I'm unable to advance for some reason. Oh, here we go. There we go. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So your point is well taken, but just as the big blocks last time we presented to you were just big bunkers, and now they have a little bit more, refinement in terms of some windows, some roof treatment. And the planetarium, was just a flat roof thing. Now it's got a little bit more going on. The same thing is coming.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we're it's sort of an incremental process. I feel your pain, and we actually had some preliminary options in this for tonight, and I looked at it and I said, nah, they're not quite right. I don't want to show it until we've got it figured out. So they will come, and you're not wrong in that they right now are just big empty dumb blocks. The development will keep coming.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yep.
Kevin, do you have some questions?
Kevin's here.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Just a couple of comments on the things I've heard. So we did, Dr. Semmel and Brian Rickard and myself, the administration met today, and we did see this design. And we do like the design. We do like the layout. The canopy piece, I heard a comment about a lot of canopies. Canopies sound good, but from a maintenance standpoint, they are hard to maintain and they deteriorate. Drive by Daniel's farm and take a look at some of the older canopies, even at Hillcrest currently. You can't canopy the whole area. They're tough to maintain. Snow removal becomes a problem. They get hit by vehicles. So my advice would be more coming off the entrance if we wanted to extend that overhang, but putting canopies throughout the parking lot might be something we'd have to discuss further. And as far as the kitchen, the way the cafeteria sits now currently, when we talk about building use and after hour activities, having the cafeteria and the gymnasium and the location they are There, exterior walls are limited, so there's only so much we can do. And again, we met today and we thought that the current layout with the way everything is set up was the way to go, and it would offer us most after-hour use of the building. So I just wanted to comment on that. And again, on the parking lot, we're still working that out, the service entrance and things like that. But the slope lines on the roof, it's another thing. We talked about wanting to clean up the exterior. What are we going to use? Stone, brick, et cetera. I just want to caution everybody to think about maintenance. We keep talking about what it's going to be, the maintenance cost. Roofs are going to need to be replaced every 20 to 30 years, depending on life. Drainage is going to become an issue. We want to make sure we can get up there, especially if there's PV, being able to clean the drains. We have some of the roof lines that come off the cafeteria that actually go back towards the center of the building rather than sloping off. So I just want to make sure we keep an eye on the maintenance costs. And yes, we want to make the building as beautiful as we can, but we also want to make it as maintenance friendly. And we have to walk that line when we're discussing all of these plans, because some of the times we do things and in 20, 30 years, we're doing shingle replacements and things that we thought we liked, but it becomes a high cost maintenance item 10, 15 years out.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for those comments, and thank you for bringing the discussions at administration level. Do appreciate that. Any other questions? Everybody good? I do have a couple of questions for Randall. It has to do with the floor plan. If you just turn to that for a second, if you don't mind. I might have missed it, but the space is to the left of the planetarium, those three large boxes. What are those?
Those are all part of the unified arts. So there's the robotics classroom, consumer science, and the tech lab, tech shop. And the planetarium is also sort of part of that unified art suite.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wasn't sure what those were. I assumed they were something along that line. And to the bottom of your triad of big box spaces, what are those? Those are the music rooms, I believe?
Yes, chorus, band, and orchestra.
Okay, thank you. And if you just turn to the site plan for a moment, I have a couple questions on that. So you mentioned the what is it, soccer field, the full-size soccer field there at the top of the site. There is a softball field that looks like is being impacted by the building. Is that being replaced, relocated, or or are you just not there yet?
Are you talking about this sort of field right here?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so this is the outfield fence, and so we are clear of that by probably 60 feet.
So what kind of a field is that?
That's the varsity softball.
Varsity softball? And that's the outfield fence?
Girls softball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the answer is you're not impacting the use and shape of that field.
Yeah, the one caveat is we haven't had an opportunity to sit down with Bismarck and see what they need for to move around the building. But I feel like there's enough room for them to kind of do what they need to do without too much problem. I will say that right now we're kind of eyeing the JV baseball field as the likely location for the geothermal well field. So that field will be impacted at least while the wells are going in, and then the turf is reestablished. So you're going to probably lose a season there with that field.
Yeah, that's probably Bismarck's laydown area as well. So it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I know, again, it's all very early, but there was also some discussion about them using the area over to the far west end of the site. Because there is a kind of a level access that would allow you to get right in here. Basically now what is going to be our access road in the end could also be an access road during construction. But they obviously need to get all the way around the building while they're building it. So yeah, some of this may well end up serving as additional laydown area, to your point, Joe.
Yeah. The other thing, if you could, on future site plans, would you mind dotting in the profile of the existing buildings being able to toggle that on and off.
Yep.
I want to
Yeah.
get a sense of where the front of this building lands in relationship to the back of the other building. So
Absolutely.
if you don't mind doing that. The other thing, you mentioned parking. So just remind me what the ed spec said about staff versus visitor parking versus bus queuing. Did they specify any particular
No,
numbers of buses or numbers of parents lining up?
no, there's nothing in the ed spec, but we did do a bus count, and well, I did a bus count prior to the interview just to get a feel for the lay of the land there, and Langen has done counts for visitors and traffic, so we'll use that. Plus, we'll get the staff numbers from administration, and then we'll have Langen come up with what they feel is the right number for parking spaces, and then we'll run it by everyone to make sure we got the number we think is appropriate.
Randall, can you also check when you're doing that? I mean, I can't believe there would be, but there might be some zoning application in terms of minimum spacing.
Yep.
And to run that by, building department or something might be a really good idea.
No, you're right on. Most zoning have parking requirements, although I will tell you that typically schools generally don't list the parking requirements for educational occupancies because they're such one-off kind of buildings and they're public buildings. But we will go through that exercise. And as Michael said, we're just trying to schedule a meeting with staff, and those are some of the things that'll be on our list to talk to them about.
Yeah, that zone to the left of the new soccer field, that's the grayed out. Is that meant to be a field, or is that
Yeah.
just left over? What is that?
Yeah, that's another, you could fit another full-size field there. And so there was some conversation about actually what to do with the space right to the south of that. And one of the things the administration had suggested was maybe some outdoor hard court surfaces for pickleball and even for basketball. Pickleball is something they've been doing for, I think they told us, for 15 years in their in as part of their PE program, and any opportunity to get the kids outside to do those kinds of things would be great. So we'll investigate maybe having some hard surface out here for something like that, and it'll be a separate.
But how close? Just because I've dealt with this for different reasons, how close to the west are houses?
Well, I mean, this field and these pickleball courts are right where the current parking lot is in the school. So, I mean, you're quite a ways. I imagine car traffic is a much larger noise and disturbance than a pickleball field, which will be, 500 feet away or more.
Okay, because we've had, and what we don't want is run-ins with neighbors where all of a sudden we've created a exterior noise pollution that's going to create a nightmare for us.
No, and in my town, tennis courts were relatively quiet tennis courts were converted to pickleball courts, and now it's a big deal because pickleball is much noisier than tennis.
Okay. Are there any questions for Taisu Kim?
I see Jack has his hand up.
Jack?
Yes, we know we have a 3-story academic wing. Can you confirm that we have no spaces that are more than 2 stories tall?
Yes. You're worried about an atrium?
Atrium maintenance. I mean, a lift to get into a 2-story space to change lighting or whatever is not so bad. A 3-story lift, that gets a little
Yes.
trickier.
No, absolutely.
Anything else, Randall, for tonight? For you guys?
No, I just, this was sort of just take your temperature as we develop things to make sure that we're heading in a direction that people are comfortable with. We'll continue to come back and upgrade and develop things further based on the comments we receive, and hopefully we're achieving some sort of consensus as we're moving forward.
Yeah, my only advice is to keep your eye on the square footage and watch that eligible square footage if you don't mind.
Not at all. In fact, I can tell you each iteration is getting a little bit smaller. So we're,
Yeah, keep working then.
yeah,
Get it smaller.
exactly.
We need space for heat pumps.
Well,
Jesse's
that's true. Right now, there aren't any heat pumps in the plan. So
It's all hidden in there somewhere, I'm sure.
All righty. With that, I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's a report from Arcadis. Jack, I think you're doing it tonight.
Yes, thank you. Pretty easy to summarize. We did, as I mentioned earlier, have a meeting with the finance department last Wednesday, laid out some protocols for financial controls, record keeping, and the like. Very productive meeting. We are developing the master control budget based on not only the breakdown that was used at grant filing, but also actuals for consultants hired to date to make sure that we're tailoring those dollars. If something needs to come out of contingency to cover something you've already spent, we'll get it done the first time. If there are opportunities to bolster the CM, the owners continue. We're working on that, and as I mentioned, we'll be able to share that at the next building committee meeting. Otherwise, our intent is to attend the design meetings with TSKP as they meet with the user groups and town departments. Keep a pulse on everything that's going on. We're still in contact with legal over some contract and schedule questions. So that's moving forward, but all in all, just maintaining progress through schematics.
Any questions? Yeah, any questions for Jack and Arcadis at this point? You guys okay? I have two questions for you, Jack. It has to do with the question that came up before, which was the commissioning agent. I know that Kevin's team is or was up to their eyeballs at year-end stuff. Do we have some window now to get that out onto the street and get somebody
His nose is finally above water, so he can breathe again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm on the tail end of just a gov deals thing. So I will say this. First, we had a great meeting with Arcadis last week. The town finance, Kevin, Maria. I don't think it could go any better. And we're going to be in relationship with them for the next few years. So we're looking forward to it. And it was a great meeting. I think Emily on the team is going to bring a lot to the table. So a lot of underlying work we're doing in the town that you guys won't see, but we're looking forward to that. The commissioning, I'm going to go out one more week and say I should have it ready early next week, Joe. I do apologize. I just just getting above water now. With the reopens and all the year-end services for everything, helping the golf course out right now. They're a little short, but I should be there next week sometime.
Okay, fantastic. So do we think that's a 2-3 week process to get some proposals and get somebody in here?
Yeah.
What do you think?
What I'm ask you guys, all the services you guys know best. You want to put it out for the minimum like 12 days, 10, 12 days? You think that's enough to get a commissioning once we get the scope done? Or do you want to leave it out there a little longer? That's up to you.
Jack, I know it's the summer, but what's your opinion on that?
I would go at least 2 weeks, depending on what kind of questions we get in that first week. We could see if perhaps we need to bump it out to a third week. I can note that we're working with TSKP on another project that has a geothermal system in it. And we just had a conversation with the client and their commissioning agent on bolstering the scope of the commissioning from what the client had originally asked for. It was a fairly significant percentage of the original fee. Kevin, I think what we'll do is we'll take the notes from that conversation with that commissioning agent and pass it along to you. I think we want to bolster the scope of services, make sure we get the best price we can the first time around. Again, commissioning is considered a qualifications-based selection as a professional service. We're not constrained to the lowest price, but we don't want to give away the candy store either. So let's capture as much of the intended and beneficial scope for commissioning as we can in the first go round.
Okay, so the scope, when I get it ready, the first draft, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put you, myself, Greg Rauchi, and TSKP, maybe Joe Costa on there for some feedback, and so we could tighten it up. Maybe revision 2 or 3 we can get out real fast.
Yep.
Sounds good. The other thing is the old prep meeting, state grant. I know we're trying to schedule that sometime in August.
We are. Rob has been working diligently to herd the cats with all of our varying schedules and summer life, and then try to fit what openings that the state had.
Yeah.
It's a good step that they made to go back to providing that early project input to make sure everybody's speaking the same language. So we right now, Rob, what is our trajectory for which week in August seems to be where we're headed on that?
Yeah, so Joe, you'll see an email I had sent you, I think yesterday, maybe the day before, to get your availability first. Being the committee chairman, it's a required person to attend. And then I'll work backwards to get the availability of everybody who's, working for the town or the public school system. I think that'd be the easiest route.
So, Robert, do they have days of the week that are set aside for this? Or is it just they do them Monday through Fridays and 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock, whatever those hours were?
Yeah, it's like 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and it's just based on the availability. So we're gonna start there. By the time we got everybody's availability the first time around, even though we were still about 2 weeks out from the our reviewer's schedule, the time booked up. So
yeah.
Okay. Joe, do you want me to do this, or are we both going to do it? Or?
I think what we want to do is if the time slot works for one of us, we can be interchanged. But I'm going to try to get that out tomorrow, the next day, Robert.
Okay.
And then we can start the round robin on that.
It's
just been a crazy month in July for me.
Yeah, I understand. And being building committee members, your volunteer position, so it's understood.
Okay, we'll get that. That's all I had for Arcadis. Anybody else have any question? No, good. All right. So let's move on to the next, and that is the Bismarck. And thank you, Greg, and thank you, Tim. Nice to see you again. Glad you were able to help us out with those costs. It was very appreciative.
Yeah, so over the past week or so, we've been working with Randall and his team regarding the square footage for those 5 options. It was a moving target. I think we didn't get it in there till about 3 o'clock, Randall, but we got it in.
Just in time.
That's it. We made it happen. And then over the past week, we've just been assisting with Board of Ed on coordination for the manifests that are getting done at Hillcrest. So we've been pretty all set with coordination there, but we're moving forward.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Greg and Bismarck? You guys are good. All right. So moving on to the next item, the date of our next meeting is August 5th. That will also be virtual. The thought is to, have the 2 meetings in August virtual, and then we can decide as a team whether or not we want to continue that into September. But the next one will be virtual. Get an invite like you did the last time. Any questions on that? None? Okay. Last, we did our action. There's no other actions that I can think of tonight. We voted on approving the first invoice. We looked at the different options. I think we're still need time to think about them. If there are any questions on the architecture or any of the options that you saw in the mechanical, please send them through me and through Barbara, and we'll get them to the design team to get some answers. But I think we need additional thinking and additional consideration on those options. We don't have to make a decision right now, but we're going to need to sort of gather those questions and begin to narrow down the choices. So,
hey Joe,
yeah.
Can you sign that original invoice that Buck has signed, and then we'll give it to finance?
Yeah.
We decided we didn't need to do that.
I think we said in our meeting that we were gonna have Arcadius look it over, approve it, bring it to the Board of Ed, Jackson to sign it, and then the chair always has to sign the invoice.
I'll be
Well,
glad to sign
that
it.
was the discussion we had before with Jim that said that while it was done, it wasn't required.
I'm just telling you what we did on every other building committee. So the chair
Just-
signs them on every other
just
one. You don't want to do it, that's fine with
No,
us.
no,
but-
just somebody just tell me what to do, and if necessary,
Yeah.
I'll sign it, scan it, send it to you guys. Not a
Marie's
problem.
gonna want you to sign. I can tell you that right now.
All right.
So
All right.
that's standard practice, unless it's in the building committee rules that we can, do it differently for different different reasons. But
It's
there's
not
not
in the
a.
rules for him to sign it either. So
Well,
okay, whatever.
I'm not
All right,
arguing with Candy. I'm just telling you, I've been on 100 of them, and this is how every chair signs them in front of us, and we take them and we pay them through our finance and accounts payable. You don't want to sign it? That's fine.
Joe,
All right. Thank you.
we can set it up for DocuSign, Joe. That way,
Yeah.
we don't have
Thank
to
you.
chase paper.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that.
Hey, just send that to me, and I'll get my signature on it.
Yep.
Any other topics for tonight that you guys want to cover? We know we covered a lot of ground tonight. If not, can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
Fran. And who is second?
Second, Bill.
Bill, thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you on August 5th. Again, if you have any questions, send them over. We'll answer. And by the way, Randall, can you send the PowerPoint out so that we can share it with the building committee?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we were having, I know emails were getting bounced back. I'm starting to use that second email. So if you don't mind getting that to us through Barbara, and we'll get it out to the committee.
We'll get it to you, John. No
Thank you,
problem.
Michael.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, guys, have a great night.
Great.
Thank you all.
So you know I won't be here.
Good night.
What was that?
I won't be here next meeting. I told you that before.
Yep. Okay,
Okay,
thank
cool.
you.